Hi, folks. My name is Darren Ray Fonso, and tonight I'd like to talk to you about workers' compensation, or labor and industries, as we call it here in Washington State. I'd like to talk about it here in Washington State and across America. Workers' comp insurance is what most people know it by. What I'd like to talk about is how I have reached out for over, I would say, 4 years now to this Washington State Bernie Kratz coalition. Before that, I was reaching out to local Democrats, like, Senator, well, all of them, basically all of my local Democrats I had reached out to and was shunned and ignored with this war on injured workers. Nobody wants to do this, the federal fix. They all want to do a state fix, even though Bernie Sanders says we need a federal fix. And so does Clintonite Patty Murray and Tom Perez. So you have folks from both camps, from the top of the echelon of the party, telling us we need minimum federal standards over broken state work comp systems. Yet the Bernie-crats don't want to question any of the candidates that they are endorsing, whether or not they will side with Senator Sanders on this issue or not, and will not hold their feet to the fire that if they're not going to make this one of their issues and be there for the injured workers of America, that they do not endorse them. But you see, I have begged for these people to help for like I say, for a very long time now. I've had this work comp fight for over 6 years, six years of work comp hell, over 5 years. It's almost six, something like that. And like I say, I reached out to this Bernie Crowd coalition before we even had the last presidential election. I reached out to even to the past administration for help, only to be ignored, except for the fact that Senator Sanders and Patty Murray and the department, or Tom Perez, who was the director of the Labor Department at the time, did write a letter to the U.S. Or Senator Sanders and Patty Murray and 8 or 10 other U.S. Democratic senators sent a letter to Senator Tom Perez asking him to do something about federal minimum standards over the broken state work comp systems. So it's kind of frustrating for me at this point to still now, here it is all this time later, the elections are all done. And like I said back then, what I was told by the Bernie-crats back then, why they couldn't stand up and fight for the injured workers of America and demand the minimum federal standards that even Senator Sanders at one point during his campaign come out and wrote, like I said, this letter. And even after that, they still would not pick up this fight for the injured workers. They told me, well, Darren, we're trying to get Bernie elected. We got to not talk about that right now. We're working on getting him elected. We can't help the injured workers of America because we're working on getting Bernie elected, is what I was told by, I think it was Mario Brown and Chad Lucas or something like that run the party back then. We had bigger issues, Darren. And then, so anyways, the election goes by and Bernie loses or whatever, drops out and concedes. Everybody knows that story. And so now it's time that, the elections are back again and we're having another election cycle and everything. So I'm saying, okay, let's get on board. Let's help these injured workers. Well, no, wait there, Mr. Fonso, injured worker. We want to put single payer on the table, and we want that to be louder and stronger than anything else out there. We don't want to talk about your issue to be talked about every news cycle or every news conference or every time we question a candidate. We don't want to ask them if they support Senator Bernie Sanders' call for federal oversight of minimum standards that would help the injured workers of America, not only in Seattle and Washington, but the ones in Alabama, who are kind of not being really taken care of. When you're kind of a group and it's a national group who says they're there for the injured workers of America, where are you, Bernie crap? Well, I can tell you where they're at because I've been begging for their help here in Washington State for over, like I say, 4 years now. And like I said, now that I'm getting told, well, single payer is a bigger issue. Well, I agree. I like single payer. It's great. We need it. And like I've told the Bernie crats, we do need that. But it doesn't do a lot of good for the injured worker who's in a tent. That's all you're going to do is give him free care when he didn't get vocational services and he isn't getting any time loss. And all you're doing is cost shifting the injured worker over to this new single care program, the way we're already being cost shifted off to the ACA or Medicare or any of the other federal SSDI or SSI roles. And mainly, most of them getting shifted off to the lower thing, that's the SSI, which is only like $750 a month. No, no, no. We need to be talking about this. And when these so-called people, revolutionaries, don't want to stand up and talk about it, and I know they know the other side, I'm not going to get any help from. But the ones who are there, who are supposed to be the voices of the poor and supposed to be the voices of the labor, it's supposed to be a change coming around here, are these verticrats who are supposed to be waking up the corporate Dems in the party and are intently choosing not to here in Washington State. Now, they also say, well, how are we supposed to go about that? Come on our show. Now, I will say this. They have allowed me to post on their pages, but they basically told me is they tolerated me all this time. They have tolerated me trying to educate them and get them to speak up and ask candidates about this stuff. You're just tolerating my posts, they're educational posts, which some of them are, sometimes I have some rants in along with them, but there's documented evidence of harm to patients for profit by corporations and by the states, and how we need federal oversight that your own Bernie-crat said, your own leader says we need, besides the senator, the Clintonites, like I said, Patty Murray says we need it. And it would get some support that, well, let's just hold off on that. I'm not saying we're going to get support from the other side on it yet. But the ones that are supposed to be there for the people, we the people, are not speaking up. Now, I went on a progressive website here, and you'll see a couple other videos where I've cut and spliced, where I've talked to some Bernie-crats that are speaking up, like in California. And these people had no problem with me asking this question to one of the candidates, and the candidate, her name was Calderon out of California. She's awesome. She will be there for the injured workers. She understands our plight. And but nonetheless, I asked her the question, and she answered back beautifully, and she knew the answer to the question. And now maybe she might make it more of an issue in her platform, hopefully, because hopefully she started to see where I'm trying to tell her, you're drowning us out with your single payer, which is what the program we all get cost shifted off to, but yet you won't stand up and fight for the minimum federal standards that we need to help out the injured workers of America. There's just not a lot of logic going on here in this Bernie-crat revolutionary movement if you can't step up and be there for the injured workers of America. Now, I got to go back to the injured workers, Trumpsters of America, and tell them, well, the Bernie-crats don't want to help me. They want to placate me just the same way the corporate Democrats have been doing for the last 4 years here. And even the Bernie-crat movement, actually, has been just like the corporate Dems. Yeah, you let me post. Let the freak have a little show. See if the train wreck's going to go off. You know, you're just placating me, and it's getting insulting. And the fact that you will throw single payer in my face, which I do want, and we need to get, but that you won't stand up and fight for the other thing that we need as well, is adding insult to injury for the injured workers of America. Especially when your own leader is saying that we need minimum federal standards, but you won't hold the political candidates' feet to the fires on this issue, because a core group of you choose not to fight for people and the injured workers of America, because Mr. Fonso don't look fucking broken enough to you motherfuckers. And I'm getting tired of that shit. You don't get to do that. You can't look inside my fucking brain, Mr. Bernie-crat, the uppity ones in the bunch. You're just the other fucking alley Republican whores. They want us to pop off. Is that what you want too, Bernie-crats? Because that's what you were saying to the workers of fucking America. Well, how am I supposed to go back to the Trumpsters and tell them, oh, look at them. No, I know Trump's doing all this bad stuff. Yeah, he's taking away all these workers' rights. But these Bernie-crats, they're going to be there for us. Sanders is there for us. Look, he wrote a letter. He wrote a letter that's going to help us. Your motherfucking letter. Sanders and you Bernie-crats need to come out and speak the fuck up. Because if you're not, you are not there for the injured workers of America. And by God, I'm not going to stand back and allow that to happen. Now, you call me and you say, oh, well, come on my show. I don't need to go on your show, brothers and sisters. The victim of harm doesn't need to come on there and spill his guts so you can give him 30 minutes of airtime that might get seen, and then it's blown away and then we hear no more. No, what I need you is every news cycle, every candidate that you're calling upon, when you stand next to Amy Velia, who says she's for injured worker, but yet has closed me out of every one of her web pages and chooses intently not to speak up. When you support Tamborini Borelli, who I spent 45 minutes on the phone with her campaign manager educating her, and she still has not put this as issue on her page, and neither has Amy Velia. No, brothers and sisters. You don't get to call me bro, Mr. Bernie-crat, no more. If you can't pull your heads out of your asses far enough and long enough to see that yes, we fight for single parent, but we also fight for the other things that we need at the same time. Then, and like I say, you could fight for the 15 an hour. You could fight for women. You can fight for a lot of other things. That's all I got for now. No, I don't. I'm not finished up. Then call back. This needs to stop. These Bernie-crats saying that they're going to help America. When they don't want to stand up and do what Sanders says needs to be done. No, I'm sorry. This is insulting. And then when I've got a bunch of 30-somethings running this Bernie-crat coalition here in Washington State, and then I do got, like, I will put a word out here for Gigi Ferguson. She will stand up. She reshares my information on all her Facebook pages. She has shared out a couple of my videos. She is aware. She is awake. And if I asked her the question, she would know the fucking answers to the questions. But you guys won't even ask her the question out in the open so that she could teach the others. And that's what I'm going to say to the Bernie-crats just as well, because that's what just happened. I went on to one of your sites out of Portland, the ones that run the Uphill Media out of California, and I asked a couple candidates there out of California a couple of the questions, and they had no problem asking the question, and both of them answered beautifully. Like I said, this one called her own. She knows exactly what's going on, and she will fight for us. She will be there. And then there was this other young kid, I can't remember his name off the top of his head. He's like 25. He's going up against Nancy Pelosi, and he's an awesome kid. But he was unaware that there's a war on injured workers and that Senator Sanders says we need some minimal federal standards, that we need a state fix. I mean, that we need a federal fix and not just a state fix, which a lot of Bernie-crats are trying to shove down our throats at this point, because that's what you're selling me when you come back and say, well, we might get you a state ombudsman. You're insulting me. You're insulting the injured workers of America at this point. It needs to stop. I'm going to put up another video.